Welcome everybody to the second quick live of the week, where we're talking about the Apple M1 integration that we now have with Capture One. So if you didn't know, we released a new version of Capture One today, which is fully native with the new Apple M1 architecture. And to talk about that in a bit more detail and to go over more of the technical background of this, we've got one of our engineers who I'm going to bring on now, who is Sune. Hi Sune, how's it going?
It's going fine, thank you.
Very
it's
good.
Nice to have released.
Yes, finally made the release, exactly. And from the comments, it seems people have experienced the benefits already, so that's great. Just before we move on, just a little bit about you. Who are you, and what do you do in Capture One?
Yeah, so I'm the engineering manager for the image processing team, which is the team that is delivering the algorithm that are forming the basis of the image processing. So all the things deep down that is responsible for both the performance and also the image quality.
Got it. So a very important part of Capture One, that's for sure. Okay, so today we're talking about the transition from the former architecture, which was all Intel based, to now a new architecture, which also now has to be native for the new Apple M1 chips. So we've got some BTS of you in action, which I'm going to bring up in a second, as people can see on screen. I like the way that we've blurred out the code in the background. Not sure that anybody would be able to make out anything of use on a single page of code, but there we are. So what does it take to go from a traditional Intel architecture to obviously an M1 architecture? And of course, we're not exclusively Apple. Capture One runs on Intel as well, so we also need to support that, as we should. So you had a good analogy about this process, I believe.
Yeah. I think it's sometimes I compare it to when you move to a new architecture in computer science. It's like when you move to a new culture. For instance, when I was a young boy some years ago, I moved to study in the US. I'm born and raised in Denmark, but I studied at UC Berkeley. And coming to the US for the first time, I realized that some of the things that I took for granted in my cultural setting was different.
Sure.
And I had to revise my my base assumptions on a lot of things. And it's kind of like the same thing when you move to a new architecture, especially since Capture One has been on Intel for all the time that it's been developed. Now we're in a new architecture, and we some of the things that was always just true without thinking, now it might not be true. Mm-hmm. So that has been a journey. But just like when you go to a new culture, you actually learn a lot from this, and you end up having a broader understanding of also your own culture and your own heritage, but also of humans in general. And the same thing for this. You understand better what we understand better now. What are the things that we can improve, and mm-hmm. we have a more solid code base now to work from. So I think this is what points to the future of what we can do.
Great. And so if we look at Capture One as it is today, so that would be 14.2, and then we look at the old Capture One, like how much of a rewrite is it? Is it like completely changing everything, or is it like the core components? Or to me, as an amateur who really knows nothing about coding, it sounded like quite an extensive task to make this change.
For the part of the code that are close to the hardware, yes, it has been quite a change. For the UI, we haven't done much updates there. So the people will find that it's the same UI, it's the same workflows, so where the change has taken place is in two places. One is the whole setup at the development organization, where we have changed build servers and pipe, the way we develop the product, and that's that is a lot of work. It's not something you will see in the application.
No.
But it will help us. Now we have gone through these exercises, and it will help us going forward to also be developing at a quicker pace. But that's some work that we as a small company has to pay upfront. If you're a larger company, there's some synergy. Once you have done this for one product line, you can reuse it for other product lines. We only have one product line at Capture One, but that also has the advantage that we can focus on what our customer wants. And that's where we bring us to the other change, which is in the image, in the core of the product that does the image processing. As I mentioned, we have been optimizing to get the most juice out of the Intel architecture for years now.
Yeah,
we really we know that it's paramount for photographers to be able to have a fluent workflow, not have to wait for things to update, because working with images is very much sort of a perceptual workflow where there's you have to get a quick feedback, because the human brain has a certain tact that it works at, and if you're much slower than that, then you don't get the intuitive sort of part of the brain working and helping you get the right image. So we have always been focusing on having a good performance together with a good quality, and that's a balance there. Moving to a new platform, we basically had to do some work to at least get on the level of these years of things that has been focusing on Intel architecture. Luckily, Apple has provided some hardware that's really fast, so we can deliver now something which is more performant than ever. But I think you will also see that this rewrite of these very basic things in the engine will help on other parts, on other platforms as well as we go forward.
Yeah, we had a question from, let me find it, Henrik. Will Windows users experience any improvements other than what's mentioned in the release notes? New camera lens support? Is the new new version faster on a Windows PC? I don't imagine it would be faster right now.
No.
But as you said, we have future benefits as well.
Yeah. So right now we have tried to rock the boat as little as possible, since we are doing some brain surgery. We don't want to also do a lot of other things that might sort of cause things to degrade the experience of our users. So we have tried to limit the things, but as I said, we have now a stronger foundation that we can build upon, and that in the future we will also use this stronger foundation to improve performance for Windows as well.
Great. Excellent. So there was another question that came up. I'm not going to be able to find it because there's quite a few comments, but it was regarding metal. So metal, if you don't know, or currently Capture One is using OpenCL for hardware acceleration, but I guess is the way to describe metal that's the more efficient, up-to-date version of graphics acceleration.
Yeah, it's a technology that Apple has given to the community that to do graphic cards accelerate processing, and it's been there for some time now, and we are introducing that for our M1 part of the release now. And that's again something where we don't want to rock the boat. We didn't want to go for metal across all of the the different on the Intel Mac as well, because we are supporting operating systems going back to Mojave, and the metal support has varied and has improved a lot in the last OS upgrade. So we're striking the balance of not letting any of our customers down by putting them in between a rock and a hard place where they would have to upgrade their OS or their hardware, at the same time trying to give the best experience for those that have the newest hardware and have the newest OS.
Is that something we can look at, though, bringing metal to the Intel architecture as well? Yeah.
It's also something we're looking at. We have, of course, competing priorities, because one thing is we want to deliver good performance. We want to do these technical advances. Yet we also know that we have a lot of people that want a specific feature, and we have to balance that. Yeah. So the timeline is not clear, but yes, it's definitely the direction we're going with.
I guess metal for M1 is fairly not easy to implement, I should never say that, but slightly more straightforward to implement, because there's only a certain number of M1 architecture out there. So
there's limited set of graphic cards, and we know they will be running Big Sur, all of them. So that's also one less variable to consider. So that's where we start with this, and then we see where that takes us.
Cool. As predicted, as we were chatting, John was asking, the M1 has a 16-core neural engine. Does Capture One currently use neural AI? And if not, is this on the roadmap? Well, we can't tell you what's on the roadmap. But Sune and I had a brief chat about this before going online, and your thoughts were, like, if it makes sense, I guess, like all these things.
Yeah, I think it's the important thing with AI is we want to use it where it can provide a better solution than what we can do with more traditional algorithms. And you will be surprised how many places actually carefully crafted traditional algorithms to outperform AI.
Yeah.
AI is sort of it's a nice source to put on top of things if you don't really understand the problem, and then it can bring you some of the way. But if you really understand the problem, a traditional algorithm is in many cases a better fit. But there are cases in computer vision where you have to do AI, and as we as those will enter our roadmap, we will of course share that with our community, and there will naturally the different hardware support for those will come in one way or another.
Yeah, exactly. And I think as you said, when it's something that we can talk about on our roadmap, then we will do so. And we've certainly, since January, been a lot more open with what's coming in the future, and we're going to continue to do so over the next few months as well. So the big question, should we all run out and buy brand new M1 Macs? I'm sure Apple would like that. So what could you expect? And one of our engineers, Timos, came up with a few different scenarios of what's the word I'm looking for? Different scenarios of if you just upgrade your computer, if you upgrade Capture One, and so on. So we're just going to run through those. Oh, just to mention soon, your microphone was just touching on your shirt there, so there was a little bit of clicking going on. So if it hangs forward, then it's okay. So if it's touching on the lapel, then we can hear it. There we go. That's fixed it. Sorry about that. What were we talking about? Yes. So moving on. So what if you already own an M1 Mac? If you're lucky enough to own that, should I obviously upgrade to Capture One? Yes, you should immediately. There would be no reason not to upgrade to the latest version if you already have an M1 Mac, correct? So that's
a no-brainer.
Yeah, no-brainer whatsoever. And we've just pulled out a couple of examples, but you're going to see a speed bump in general, as some of the people in the comments have already said so. everywhere is going to improve. If you watched the session with me and Paul Reefer on Tuesday, and we looked at some of the editing that we could do on an M1 Mac compared to my system and Paul's, then it's running really, really nicely. So you'll be able to expect, good improvement all around. Should you buy a new M1 Mac? As I said, I'm sure Apple would love you to go out and buy a new M1 Mac. So should I upgrade my Mac, essentially? What you'll see, oops, sorry, I was too keen. To give you exact performance metrics, I guess sooner that's very difficult, because if I'm upgrading from a 2011 Mac Mini to a brand new M1 Mac Mini, that's quite a big jump. If you're going from, I guess, my system, which is a 16-inch MacBook Pro, to an M1, then it's less of a jump. So, but generally, as well as all the faster editing in general, we're going to have faster editing when exporting photos, working with bigger catalogs and albums and those kinds of things. So,
I think it's fair to say that, if you say compare last generation Mac Mini with this M1 based, you will definitely also see an improvement.
Yeah,
it's noticeable.
Yeah, so, I'm sure it'd be a big bump.
It's not, exactly. It's not just a small increment. You can feel the difference.
And as I said with Paul when we were chatting on Tuesday, the M1 MacBook Pro I have is easily matching the performance of this system that we're talking on, which is a 16-inch with an external eGPU. So it has, a lot of graphics horsepower, but it's matching that, pretty perfectly, to be honest. So should I buy a new M1 Mac, and should I upgrade to Capture One? So you get the benefits of new hardware and, of course, the benefits of new software. So everything we've spoken about, you're going to experience so far. And, of course, the new features that were added in 21, like faster importing, smoother brushing, working with larger catalogs, and a whole host of other stuff is going to give you a nice net increase as well. So again, if you're going from a previous generation Mac Mini or older MacBook Pro, and then jumping to M1 systems, then of course you're going to see a big speed bump. So the reason why we don't have specific numbers up here, because everyone's system is different as well. What OS are we supporting? So we're supporting back to Mojave, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there was a question.
Actually, last time I checked, it was actually High Sierra on the 14.1. But I think people should consider upgrading.
Yeah,
it's even been deprecated by Apple, so it's no longer seeing support from Apple. So, yeah,
I'd personally encourage everyone to upgrade if you can to the latest OS, hardware allowing. Big Sur's been working great for me, and in terms of Metal support forthcoming, as you said, we don't want to force people to upgrade their OS if they're happy with that, but in the long run it would make sense if you try to keep your OS current as well. So currently, to make it clear, as I saw a question from Ariel, who might have joined late, currently the M1 processor equipped Macs run with Metal. The Intel equipped Macs run with OpenCL. The future plans is to look at Metal for Intel as well, and see what the long-term process of that is. And as you said, Sune, there's a gain, but we also have to consider if there's any disadvantage to that as well.
Yeah, and I saw the question there was specific from Mojave. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't hold my breath for that. Yeah. I think we will introduce when we introduce Metal, we will be looking at the more at the OSs that has better support for that.
Yeah.
So if I really wanted to have Metal on, then I would probably look at upgrading my OS and or hardware.
Look towards transitioning. Yep, exactly. Yeah. So lots of questions about could support of M1 be a starting point for developing iPad OS version of Capture One? I guess the processor, really, that's not the commonality for support, essentially.
Yeah, I think that as I mean, there's the iOS, the operating system is a different beast, and the whole tablet experience versus a desktop app is also a very different thing. But the comment is right in that it is a stepping stone. I mean, having this one nailed will ease the development of a tablet product. That's clear.
Yeah, as you say, the code is one thing, but the whole experience of using a touch interface compared to a using a mouse or a pen is completely different. So,
Yeah.
but again, once we know more about it, we can tell everyone about it. Okay, so to wrap up, and again, if you've got any more questions, please file them in. In terms of Apple's involvement, are we on our own with this in terms of having to figure out the new architecture, or what kind of support do we get from companies like Apple?
Yeah, so we have worked together with Apple. We have received early versions of the M1 hardware developer toolkits. We have also been sharing our findings when it comes to, for instance, tethering. On certain cameras, there was challenges with tethering. Oops.
Oh, sorry, that was me.
So we have shared our findings with Apple, and they have been helpful in sort of giving feedback on how we could solve some of these, and also if there was something they could do on their side, they would do that. So it's been a good support in this endeavor.
Great, excellent. All right. Last couple of things from myself. There's a blog post up on our Learning Hub at the moment featuring Sarah Silver. She's one of our new ambassadors, and she speaks about her experiences. So if you want to actually get some insight into how she found her first experience with the M1, then go check that out. We'll try to put the link up in the comments as well. But that's just on learn.capture1.com, and it's the first story up there. So I'll leave that up, and then I'm just going to leave the questions open for a bit longer. Well, that's an interesting question from David. Can Capture One make a video editor? I'd love to bring the Capture One look to my video. I imagine that's a whole different image processing pipeline, stills to video.
It is, but David, you're not the first one who tells us they would like to have sort of the same color experience in video as they do in Capture One. So yeah,
certainly for e-commerce as well. If you have a mix of stills and video, to align the color would be pretty awesome. Yeah. Okay, I'm just whizzing through the questions. Oh, that's a good one from Guy. Is it easier to develop for M1 than for Intel? Is it harder to compile for M1?
Yeah, so the actual compilation is just a flag. I mean, it's there was some what we're doing is we're building a universal binary, which means it both have an Intel and an M1 specific part. So when you download, you just download one binary, and it will run on both platforms. The OS will take care of picking the right versions. So that of course required some rework of how we take the code from code to our final product. Whether the actual compilation, I would say as I mentioned,
watch the microphone sooner. Sorry.
Okay,
yeah.
sorry.
That's better.
We did find some of the assumptions that held true on the Intel platform no longer held true, and that can be for some sort of like hidden race conditions for those of you who do multi-threaded programming. There could be someone in the audience. You'll know that some of these timing issues, they might hide for a long time until you change something, and then they suddenly reappear. And we did have one or two cases where things, monsters that had been long, hidden under rocks and never showed their ugly face, showed up, and of course we had to address those. But I wouldn't say it's more difficult. No,
No, good.
it's just different.
Just different,
which is also important.
Yeah, exactly. And I put this image up just to remind people that they don't have to go looking for an Intel version or an M1 version. It's universal. So you download Capture One, and as you said sooner, it'll just figure out how to work on your processor, whether you're Intel or M1. So nothing really from a customer experience that you need to think about or change. Okay, I think I'm just going to give 30 seconds for me to scan this last question. One from David, more of a practical one. Could you tell us what M1 device you're using? Do we need 16 gigabytes of RAM on an M1 machine? Well, the device I have, which is this one, which is sleeping, wake up, M1. This one, I believe, I can't actually remember. Let's check. So that has 16 gig, but I mean, certainly it seems, and I don't know sooner if you can talk about this from an engineering background. I mean, traditionally when we buy a new Mac, we try and stuff as much memory in it as possible, but that's the upper limit for this MacBook Pro. So is the memory requirement not quite as severe?
I would recommend people to get
still go large.
Yeah. I think it's also just realizing that the images people are working on today, have so many megapixels. So the more memory, the more performant you will see. You always risk, if you go low on memory, to have to see performance bottlenecks, and it would be a shame to run into that, having just bought a new M1.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not a cheap investment. So for the relatively small cost of adding more memory, then yeah, go big or go home. But we've got a comment from Wolfgang. He says, I have a Mac Mini and MacBook Pro M1, both with 8 gig. It works fast without any problems. So there we go. So yeah, but if you, I think with all these all these things with memory, if you can afford it, then then go for it. Yeah, there we go. So thanks for let's bring up Sune's BTS again. Thanks for joining us today, Sune, to give us some insight into the engineering background and this process. As I said, if you want to learn more about Sarah's experience, so I mentioned Sarah Silva, so that's Sarah, she's one of our new ambassadors, then go check out the Learning Hub. We try and pop the links up in the comments as well. There's also an interview on Petapixel with our CEO Raphael, which is also on our Learning Hub, which you can check out as well. So do go and look at those. So thanks for joining me again, Sune, and taking your time to speak to everyone today as well.
Yeah, it was my pleasure.
Yep. Thank you very much, and take care, everybody, and we will see you all again soon. Bye now. Have a great night.